All right. Great. So today we are talking about rejection sensitivity. And just for a little bit of background about who we are, who these folks are that you're listening to, because you probably heard about this either from me or Lauren, and you don't know the other one of us, right? So I'm Becca. I'm a researcher, educator. I'm a neuroaffirming executive function coach. I run programs for neurodivergent adults, including this series, Spicy Brains Learn Fast. Also, Spicy Brains Get Stuff Done, which is the more concentrated cohort that happens every few months. And before that, I spent about a decade in higher ed, teaching, researching, leading tutoring centers, and about a decade as a nonprofit executive. I'm neurodivergent in multiple ways, and everyone in my family has turned out to be very neurodivergent. These things do run in families, right? So that's a little bit about my background. How about you, Lauren? You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a career self-discovery and leadership coach. I'm based in Providence, Rhode Island. So I see a few folks are also in the Northeast. I'm an entrepreneur and I love helping people develop the tools that they need to be confident change makers. I have a background in behavior change, motivation, and organizational culture at various organizations. And I have my lived experience with disabilities, with neurodivergence, ADHD, dyslexia, and deafness has shaped the way that I see the world, my coaching practice, and the way that I approach careers and thinking about careers. So much of that is rooted in supremacy culture and ableism, really. So I help people excavate that and make choices that align with their values and needs.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that intro. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Lauren to get into rejection sensitivity. We're going to learn more about it from her. I'm going to add a little bit on the lens of feedback for those who are in the group, both on the how do I help people give me better feedback when this might be a factor, and how do I give better feedback where this might be a factor. But for now, I'm going to shut up and hand the mic over to you, Lauren.
Cool. Thank you. So I wanted to preface this by just saying, rejection sensitivity. So that's a term that I use to describe the spectrum of experiencing perceived rejection from emotionally unpleasant all the way to excruciatingly painful. And I come at this from a lens of I know how I experience it. And I am sharing this perspective from a place I have found tools that have been helpful for me. So I am happy to share them. And I hope that you take what you need and leave the rest and can do the work to figure out what works best for you when you're experiencing rejection sensitivity, because we're all different and we experience things differently, and our bodies and brains are, experience the world differently. So I just wanted to preface that, I'm not presenting this as this is the only way. There are so many ways to thrive in the world. And so this is just a loving offer. So you take what you need from it. So rejection sensitivity, like I said, I use that as a way to describe this spectrum. And there's nothing wrong with being sensitive. I think many of us have been taught that, we've been taught that we're too sensitive, that we should feel shame about being too sensitive, when really sensitivity is a source of wisdom. It shows emotional awareness. It is a signal to us about what we value, what we desire, what we need. So when things aren't going wrong and we're feeling that sensitivity activation, being able to dig into why I feel this way, really can be more data that's helpful for you to know what it is you value and what you need. And then it also just makes us thoughtful and caring humans, which in my book is a good way to be. Next slide. So rejection sensitive dysphoria. So this is something that is not diagnosable. It's not a diagnosis. It's just it's a concept for a very common experience that a lot of us neurodivergent folks experience. And that experience is emotional pain in response to perceived rejection, criticism, and failure. This feeling goes beyond disliking the unpleasant experience of rejection and feels intolerable or excruciating. And that's according to Very Well Mind. So I wanted to leave this with you for you to be able to identify like, yes, okay, yes, that resonates with me. It feels like not just unpleasant, but excruciating sometimes to experience that emotional pain. So, but what can this actually look like? Next slide. So a few examples for my personal life. I have, since I've been old enough to make friends, I have experienced this in my social life. So in making new friends, I typically, I tend to perceive others' behavior, assuming that they don't want to be friends with me. And then I go into a shell myself and then other people perceive my behavior like I don't want to be friends with them. And then nobody makes new friends because we're all just like being shells of ourselves, or we're like being standoffish, right? So this is now something that I'm like aware of, and I kind of just assume everybody wants to be my friend now because of this, and my behavior is different because of that. It communicates something different when I'm meeting new people. But with my old friends, this comes up like even just a few years ago. My inner Billy told me that my friend only invited me to their bachelorette and their wedding because I invited them to mine, and not because they actually love me. And that is, I know that's not true, but at the time it was just like I was just spiraling out because that's all I could. That was the intrusive thought that I was ruminating on. And then in a career identity crisis, so this is like so many of my clients, right? We want to make the world a better place, but we're not really sure how, or where to put our skills, or what our skills even are, and how to use them to make the world a better place. So but the way that sometimes can feel is like my inner Billy is convincing me that I don't have what it takes to be successful in any industry, any field of any kind ever, which again, it's just not true. But that is how, like, it's amazing what our brains are able to convince ourselves of, right? So the good news is I have tips. So feel free to take a screenshot of this. I know there's like a lot of words on this slide, but first I want to share that just having awareness that this is a tendency has allowed me to, it's helped me remember that there are tools in my toolkit that I can use to move through it. I'm not like trying to avoid it or suppress it, but I know, okay, like I know I have tools in my toolkit that will help me figure out like, what do I need in this moment? How can I use this sensitivity as wisdom, right? And move on with my life. So one of those tools can be tapping into your inner BFF. So you've heard me use the term like inner bully. That's just a term that I use to describe my inner saboteur, inner critic. And so sometimes it's helpful to actually like write down what that inner bully is saying, so you can see it on the page. I had a client do this recently in a session, actually see it written out. What is my inner bully saying to me? And she was like, yeah, so what about it? And then I asked her, well, like, would you ever say these things to a colleague? And she was like, oh, like audible gasp, like, no, I would never talk to another client that way, or colleague that way. And even like minutes later in the session, she was still like, I'm just still shook from that because I can't ever imagine saying these words to anybody else. So that's like part one of the exercise. Part two of the exercise is asking, well, what would I say to a friend that is experiencing this? Or what would a loving friend say to me right now? And that way, you get to tap into like that inner best friend, that self-compassion, and being able to like actually physically writing it out can show you things that you didn't think would come up for you, and to better internalize it. So like physically writing out those things, a good journaling prompt, if you will. But sometimes our inner talk isn't enough. Sometimes we truly need to connect with our external support squad. So that's number 3 here, is connecting with my external support squad has helped me see what my inner bully won't let me see. And when I have a really hard time remembering what my sunshine looks like when I shine it out into the world, I have coaches and mentors and friends who will remind me what that is. I'm a solo entrepreneur, but being a solo entrepreneur is not a solo pursuit. You have to have people in your corner who are like cheering you on, reminding you how awesome you are. And so I actually have like weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly meetings with various people who are in my support squad and my business advisory council, if you will. And those people who truly see how brilliant I am and can help pull me out of those moments where I'm like just stuck in my head. Number 4 is a bit like can be a bit abstract, but I want this to be a mantra, which is like assume love. Assume love is the mantra. And what this can look like is, for me personally, is assume everyone wants to see me rock what I got on social media. When I'm like, ooh, I gotta like post online. I don't know if I should post about that. Ooh, right? It helps me to be like, I'm just gonna assume that everyone who's following me is following me because they want to see my content. They want to see me rock it. Assume that people want to be friends with me, like I mentioned before. Assume that people want to hire me as I am. I don't need extra credentials and degrees and education. As I am right now, I am a valuable asset, and I have lived experience and personal experience and professional experience that is valuable. So this energy attracts, right? People like it brings people in, and regardless of how those jobs and new clients and new friends like pan out, it is an invitation for other people to love themselves that way too, and they see us like that. So we can have grounded, intentional audacity without arrogance. So assume love. And then finally, when you're really like, when I'm really stuck having an intrusive thought, I learned this from a hypnosis teacher, Melissa Tiers, and I have incorporated a lot of this unconscious pattern disruption work into my own coaching. And what she talks about is interrupting, like creating interruptions. So when you have intrusive thoughts, interrupt it. What does that look like? Have you ever watched the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once? It's like one of my favorite movies. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Yes. Okay. Getting some love in the chat. So you have to see the movie. It's Yeah, it's wild. But basically, in order for the main characters to jump through universes, they need to do the silliest thing they can think of in that moment, or like the most unexpected thing in that moment. So that's an extreme version, as you'll see, because it's a comedy and it's absurd. But in daily life, what can that look like? If you are having an intrusive thought and you're ruminating, it could look like just changing your activity, just going for a walk. It could look like doing a cartwheel or doing jumping jacks. It can also be internal. So imagining the silliest thing that could happen in this situation. For me, a recurring rumination that I have when I'm anxious is that I'm going to fall down the stairs. And so for me to interrupt that, I tend to think, well, if I fall, and I'm going to roll into a triple flip, back handspring, double, whatever. I haven't watched gymnastics in a while, but basically like landing at the bottom of the stairs like a gymnast and being like, the applause and everything. Yeah. So that's like happening in my head to help just switch me out of the like, what if I fall down those stairs and break my neck? Like just thinking of the silliest thing that you can in that moment. This allows you to break that rumination cycle and choose how to respond in the moment. It kind of brings you back. It brings you back to the moment and makes you feel present. It also helps you create new neural pathways in your brain associated with self-compassion and making a new habit. And that's what we want, right? So I'm going to leave you with that and turn it over to Becca to talk more about feedback and a different perspective on rejection sensitivity.
Great. I love all those tips. Thank you so much. If you haven't screenshot this, feel free to screenshot it. The recording will be up on YouTube afterwards, but if you want this screen of tips, grab it now. I will now every time I go down the stairs, because that's one of my weird ruminations too, that I was always assumed as a just me thing. So thank you for sharing. It's not a just me thing. And I love the flip on that. Like I'm going to picture never did gymnastics, but suddenly in my head, I'm going to be a gymnast. So feedback. So rejection sensitivity affected me so much when I was young without ever knowing the name for it, that it actually became a scholarly interest of mine. So I did my master's thesis on what it took for creative writers to be able to process feedback well. I did my dissertation on what it took for academic writers to be able to receive feedback inside writing centers. And then when I became a manager for 2 decades, I obsessively read all the things about how do we give and receive feedback so that like behaviors can change without people feeling judged. And I'm boiling all of that down into 3 tips. And you can use these 3 tips either as a way of requesting how people who are giving you feedback, how they can give it to you. It's a way of almost asking for an accommodation without ever having to formally name anything about your neurotype and the way that your brain works. Just like, hey, I can receive and act on feedback so much better if these 3 things are true. You can also use it. I saw a few people in the beginning saying, I'm here to learn how to, maybe give more actionable, usable feedback for employees that I think are grappling with this kind of thing, or colleagues that I think might be grappling with it. You can use it in that direction too, right? So the first thing is we're all way more likely to be able to take feedback and act on it if we believe that the person giving us that feedback understands what we're trying to do, right? And we believe they know how to do that. So if you think back to a time that somebody gave you some feedback and you were like, meh, my bet is that one of the things that was true is that you were thinking, you don't really get me. You don't really like me. You don't really get where this would show up with writers is like, well, you don't really understand the audience I'm trying to write for. You don't really understand the genre. In the workplace, it would be like, well, you don't really get, I don't really believe that you understand how to do this thing because you're up there being managery and I'm here actually in the stuff, getting these things done, right? So giving the feedback in a way that conveys, I understand what you're trying to do. I see you. I see you are trying to do this. It's a way of starting from affirmation that is not just vague, like, oh, I love you, hearts, right? You're seeing them. And you can ask for that too. Hey, can you convey to me first? What is it that you see that I'm trying to do so that I can anchor your feedback to that? The second thing builds on that by being asset focused. And this is because for all of us, regardless of neurotype, it is way easier to do more of what we are doing well than to try to dodge what we are not doing well, right? So when we are asset focused in our feedback, when we say, hey, here, where you did this, that is the start of exactly the kind of thing that we need to do here. What I want you to do is build on it, right? And when you ask for that, when you say, hey, when you're giving me feedback, can you make sure to tell me which things are going in the right direction so I know what not to throw out, so I know what to keep doing or to do more of or to do even better or bigger. It helps us receive the feedback and it helps us give better feedback. And the third thing is to be specific, right? And this applies to the first two and also to any constructive feedback that we're going to give. Make sure that it is concrete and actionable. If your feedback says something like, I don't like this, or redo this, or not yet, what the heck can somebody do with that, right? Like they have no idea. They have no idea what to do with that. But if your feedback is specific and actionable, now it helps take it away from you are broken and bad and made a bad thing, and that's why I'm giving you feedback about it, to here is the thing that can change. This is now specific, concrete, and you can move forward. So those are my three. I mean, I could nerd out about this for hours, but I want to make sure that you all have the chance to ask questions. Both Lauren and I can stay on a bit late, so I want to give question space first to anybody that does have a hard stop in 5 minutes. So please feel free to raise your hand right now. There's a little hand raise function at the bottom. To raise your hand right now with your questions. If you're somebody that definitely has that hard stop in 5 minutes, we'll go through those folks first and then cycle out to everybody else. Yeah, that's a good question, Elizabeth. I appreciate you articulating that. So I think when we're in that back and forth, right, so it depends. Sorry, let me ask this first. Are you talking about a workplace environment where it is a work deliverable, where there's a specific thing that work deliverable is supposed to accomplish? Are you talking about other contexts where it's not, where there's not clear work? Okay. So within a workplace context and a workplace deliverable, then it helps to, as a way of like front loading wherever it's possible, making sure initially before somebody goes too far down the line of making the deliverable, making sure that you're initially both on the same page about what the purpose of that deliverable is, right? Okay, we're going to make a deck. Don't just say make a deck for the presentation later on such and such. It's the goal of this deck is to have people leaving the meeting feeling blank, blank, and blank, knowing this, able to do this, ready to whatever, right? This is our goal. When that's already stated up front as part of the action of the deliverable, then it makes it easier to avoid the rejection sensitivity. When you then are looking at the deck and you're like, I don't think it's accomplishing that goal, you can say, hey, I see you're doing this thing right here. For me, I'm not seeing the connection between how that is going to fit the goal that we said if we want people to leave the meeting feeling blank. But I may be missing something that you're seeing. Can you articulate that to me, right? And so that's a way to make it more specific of not just like, tell me what you meant to do here, but rather like anchor it to the thing that we had already agreed on, and now help me understand how this relates to the thing that we agreed on, as a way of seeing what it is that they're trying to do. And then if it's a miss, you can be like, oh, I get it. Okay, you were trying to do this. Got it. I love that. I think that's a really good point. Or if you don't love it, you say something different, right? But like, that's a really good point. I think it might be more effective for us to try to do that this way, but I appreciate that you noticed that, right? So still that chance to, again, don't say praise that you don't mean, but look for the authentic thing to appreciate, to then pair with the, not like the nonsense BS compliment sandwich type where it's like, I love your hair. This slide is a piece of crap. You have a great outfit, right? Like that doesn't work, right? But seeing something to authentically appreciate and then help redirect it, that is usually more helpful at avoiding a rejection sensitivity. Great. Oh, Lauren, I also want to give you the chance because I jumped straight in. Is there anything that you wanted to add there on that one or about the question that Courtney just added in the chat?
No, nothing to add. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, so then Courtney, with your example, what are ways to cope with supervisor feedback that is not those three best case components? Yeah, so again, the pre-work can help, right? So if you communicate with your supervisor up front when they first assign you the deliverable, if you ask, and actually I go back and forth on some of her stuff, but Brene Brown has a really good articulation of this, how she does it in the company that she is now running, like the things that people, it's just like the general rule and training that everybody needs to ask for before they continue forward with a deliverable, in a recent podcast series she did with Adam Grant. So that's like a really concrete thing that you could pull, especially if your boss or your workplace is like a fan of Brene Brown and Adam Grant. You'd be like, I found this podcast series. It's so great about how to lead effectively in organizations. It's not neurodivergent specific, but I think it aligns very well. It happens to be neuro-inclusive in the way that it is set up. So setting it up front to ask for, okay, I just want to make sure, let me repeat back. I'm hearing that what it is that we want to achieve with this is this. This is what I'm imagining that means. So, right, so setting it up so that the purpose of it is clear from the beginning before you get working. Also letting your supervisor know, hey, in general, I find that I'm able to act on your feedback much more rapidly and effectively when you let me know these things, right? So you sort of say up front, if you know that you're walking into a feedback session, you can sort of say like, hey, I would really appreciate if you can let me know. And then even in the moment, it is the most tricky to do it this way, but even in the moment of managing up, if someone says like, you know, oh, this is just, I need you to redo this deck. It takes some bravery, it takes some practice, but this is where I think some of Lauren's tips come in handy, right? To like get yourself internally calm and regulated first, and then be able to say, okay, I hear that you want me to change the deck. I need a little bit more information to make sure that when I do that, it's going to fit your needs, right? So can you tell me, is there anything that's currently happening that you want me to do more of? You want me to continue and make sure to leave in? Can you tell me specifically what actions you're wanting these things that are not working yet? Are there specific ideas you have in mind that you would like me to take action on? And can you refresh my mind? Has maybe the purpose changed a little bit since we first talked about it? I was thinking this was going to accomplish blank, blank, blank. I'm hearing that maybe there's something else you wanted to accomplish that this is not meeting. What is that additional thing, right? So asking those kinds of questions in the moment can help redirect and essentially retrain your manager into how to give feedback that's actually usable instead of just judgy. Lauren, anything you want to add to that?
No, that's great.
Okay. All right. And then Rocky, I'm looking at your, oh, go ahead, Lauren. Were you going to say
Yeah,
something?
I was going to say, I know this isn't a question, but I'm guessing it's kind of like, well, like what to do, how to deal with folks who are not self-compassionate. So right now I'm reading Nonviolent Communication Tactics. The book's called Nonviolent Communication.
Right,
and that's Marshall B. Rosenberg.
yes.
And in the book, he talks about empathetic listening. So you can tell when somebody is talking, you can recognize that they're feeling some kind of way and that there are some sort of unmet need. So being able to say, are you feeling disappointed because you thought that this would go one way and it went another way, or something like that, and being able to kind of like give them a chance to do their, like, kind of reflect back, like, is that how I'm feeling? No, actually I'm feeling this other way, or like, yes, that's how I'm feeling, and like making them feel heard so that they can kind of like maybe start to think about that. I mean, you can't like, you can't be like, wait, you got work to do. Right? But you can at least listen empathetically and help them start to see, like, okay, I'm feeling this way because I have this unmet need, and hopefully they'll start to convince themselves to get the help that they need so that those needs can be met.
Yeah. All right. Before we answer more questions, because for those that have the hard cutoff, I just want to make sure that we get the final piece of how to keep in touch, right? So if you're not already on my newsletter, I would recommend that you get on it so that you can get alerts to events like this and other cool things. You can find all my links via this QR code, my link tree. Also, if you just look up linktree/spicybrains get stuff done, you'll get it. Lauren's info here, you can join her email list for a career support care package. She's got the cute little T-Rex style QR code here for you to be able to scan and get that. But she's at laurengoldbergcoaching.com. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody had the chance to see that for those that need to hop off right on time. And then we will continue the questions. We'll switch to stopping the recording for those who have questions that maybe you didn't want to put on recording. So thank you everybody for joining.
Thank you.
Please feel free. And if you would like to stay, you are welcome to stay. All right.